Over the last couple of weeks, I've decided to sit down and read through Bronze Age Mindset again. A couple of years ago, I listened through it, and I thought that since I'm getting back into YouTube, it would probably be a pretty good idea to reacclimatise myself to the way that people are thinking. So I decided to pick that up. The next book I'm going to be picking up is The Populist Delusion. So, what are my thoughts on Bronze Age Mindset, considering how BAP is actually very popular right now and is a great influence inside of the online right-wing sphere? Well, to be honest, reading it, especially after reading Andrew Tate's book, essentially all that Bronze Age Mindset is a more distilled, more honest version of Andrew Tate's Bible, in my view. It holds power as the primary value and doesn't really care for much else. It's actually quite boring. It feeds very much into the Fight Club part of a man's brain. That's what I noticed. It's very powerful, it's well-written propaganda, but the thing is that it's nothing but that. All it does is tell you to follow your hormones and to go and destroy things and do manly things. It doesn't really actually solve any problem at all. It's just follow your hormones, bro. Now, that's the thing. That's the problem with the hormones. I think that BAP, for all of his heroism and all of his posting, nude men on the internet, and pursuit of some sort of heroic ideal, I think he's aiming incredibly low. I find his ideas of heroism to be quite pusillanimous, to be honest. The idea that we can somehow be like an Alcibiades or something, and we'll travel around and we'll learn languages and we'll just achieve things for power. Boring. Really, really boring. Because power passes away and you die. As he himself will concede, he'll talk about reincarnation in a very loose sense. But he will die. And he will have built all this power and then nothing will have happened. Which is, to be honest, a very, very small goal, especially when there are better things to be achieved. If this man had been a Christian, a genuine Christian, he would have understood that he could have achieved far more power simply by following the Christian life. He wouldn't even have to set aside all of the travels and interesting bits of the heroes. He would just have to set aside the certain sins. But, of course, like a lot of the guys on the far right, this man probably doesn't actually understand why morality is important. I could be wrong. If he sees this, then by all means, Bab, comment. But the whole point of morality is that it's supposed to excel and perfect the person who follows it. It is not there as like the whinings of 19th century grandmothers or something like this that don't know any better. No, the whole point of these systems is that they are supposed to channel a person into a superior level of being. And that's what Christianity ultimately is. That's how we can have heroes like Christopher Columbus and such, while also having saints who remained inside of monasteries and still were extremely heroic. Speaking of monks, there's a rather entertaining part where BAP will decide to say, well, how do you know that all of these cities aren't the same, and how do you know that the history isn't falsified? Which, to be honest, sounds like a very common tactic of the evil one. I doubt it's really intended this way in the book, but nonetheless, it's something that sometimes springs to mind. And like much of the book, he doesn't really know all that much about what he's dealing with. He's kind of picking historical facts here and there. He's relying on 19th century biblical scholarship for his views on the Bible, which is very trite and boring at this point. It doesn't understand the text properly. So when he goes, for example, and says that Judaism emerged out of Zoroastrianism, I mean, come on, bro. We have the historical evidence and we have the archaeological evidence to say that this is nonsense. But it was never BAP's aim to really be reasonable anyway, and I suppose that his followers wouldn't be convinced by logic either. So I'll just say this. The kind of silly little asinine power that you're pursuing, it's pointless, it's not very manly, and it will pass away very quickly, and you'd be much better becoming somebody like Francis of Assisi, who, if you actually read the contemporary and near-contemporary biographies of his life, was such a Chad that it doesn't even bear repeating. I'd recommend St. Bonaventure's version of the life of Francis myself. The man was a machine, and he was just as adventurous as somebody like Alcibiades. I mean, you can look into his interactions with the Egyptian pharaoh. Bear in mind, this was the son of some random cloth merchant in a small city in Italy, right? The saints just excel the heroes that this man preaches, in such a grand sense that I kind of pity the BAP people, because they're just pursuing little things when they could be pursuing much higher ones. And so I'll leave it at that. It's kind of like Andrew Tate, except Andrew Tate's been very manifestly successful, whereas I can't say if BAP's done anything. It's basically him with a philosophical flavour. Thanks very much for watching. Please subscribe to my Patreon if you're interested in learning Latin. There's Latin readers available through that Patreon. Of course, share and like the video. Thank you very much for watching.